gonna need an agenda temper. Because my computer decided to die. It's working. It's just taking a while. But we can start the meeting. You right? God, it's the opposite. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with section 19.83 and section 19.84 Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call, trustee Terry Kaminsky is absent, excused, and the rest of the members of the committee are present. With that, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of October 18th, 2021.
I would move for their approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes. Any discussion? Corrections? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Is there anyone here in the audience for public comment or online? Anyone online?
We do have a guest online, but no one has indicated that they would like to make a public comment.
Thank you. With that, then, we'll move on to new business. Item A, resolution for inclusion under group life insurance item.
So real simple, this is just for the group life insurance through the state that we received. There's 2 additional supplements that we haven't been offering to our employees. However, it's no cost to the village. However, they need a resolution for us to accept it.
Right, I think this was the one that was brought up previously, right? That it's a volunteer thing and.
Yep.
And it's really no cost. It's no cost to the village. Is it a cost to the employees at all?
Yes, it's an additional premium to the.
Oh, I see. So it's self-funded though. I mean, they're funding the whole thing. Okay. There questions, comments?
Name of the company?
It's the Wisconsin Retirement System.
Oh, okay. Very good. Thank you. To approve.
Yeah. Second. All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion on the life insurance items? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, with that, we'll move on to item B, financial software. Tyler Munis.
Good evening. In your packet, you'll have a memo from myself about our financial management RFP process, beginning in, or we are currently using Harris MSI as our financial software vendor. As the village have grown over the last 20 or 30 years, the system has not been able to keep pace with our requirements and our demands. So beginning in July of 2021, we had sent out an RFP for a new financial management software system, which was open for a month and closed at the end of August. Received 5 RFPs from 5 different vendors listed in the memo: OpenGov, Springbook Software, Tyler Technologies, BSNA, and Workhorse. Following our review of those 5 proposals, staff selected 2 to come in for day-long demos, where they spent 8 hours demoing their product and their capabilities. Those 2 were BSNA and Tyler Technologies. Tyler Technologies is located out of Maine and BSNA out of Michigan. And then we invited staff, department heads and frontline staff who would be working with the software every day to come in and watch those demos and provide feedback. So after receiving feedback from staff, kind of going over what each vendor could provide the village, and after reaching out to like-sized communities and neighboring communities who are using both products, staff is recommending Tyler Technologies to the village board. towards the bottom of the memo, you will see the annual operating costs as well as the conversion and implementation costs. In the packet, I included Tyler Technologies' proposal and their statement of work.
Right, and this is also on the agenda for tonight at the village board, is that right?
Yes, Tyler Technologies will be presenting remotely, and
Okay.
we'll be here. Well,
There'll be a more comprehensive presentation about the
yep, about the
about
software and
item,
its
the
capabilities.
software and all that.
Motion to approve new business B as,
I'll second it, but I'd like to ask some questions.
Yeah, all right, we have a motion, discussion.
Matthew, the implementation, the conversion and implementation, and that's in looking at your document here, that's of all the general ledger, the payroll, utility billing, whatever.
Yep.
How long do they feel that implementation will take?
About 18 to 24 months to get all the modules up and running.
18 to 24 months?
Yes.
And because
Wasn't expecting that.
Because let me go back. I guess I'm a little confused. Is last month or the month before, we approved an agreement. I forget the name of the company,
Capital Data.
Capital Data, and that was to also install the IT portion of it. So they would have nothing to do with this at all then.
The contract for Capital Data was for general information tech, IT support.
Yep.
So it is unrelated to this contract. There may be some slight work as they're helping us. The Capital Data may help us as we go through the process of getting the system set up. There may be some work included in Capital Data's contract just to help with loading software onto people's desktops or checking the capabilities of network connections, those kinds of things. But generally, there'd be very limited interaction between Capital Data and Tyler Munis.
Okay. So the annual operating portion of this is 125,000.
Correct.
And how long? I tried to look through a lot of the documents yesterday, but for how long then is this contract good for?
I think a standard is 5 years.
5 years? Okay.
I would add, hopefully, I think it's renewable
Long
after
time.
that. Hopefully, it goes longer than that. Typically with maintaining the systems, keeping them up, we'd like to get at least 10 years, 15 years out of the system. And if I could just comment that I know the 18 to 24 months sounds like a long time, and it is. It's a lot of work to get the system installed. It involves really from the beginning redoing most of our business processes within Village Hall, and then this is not just a financial system, not just a system that cuts accounts payable checks or keeps track of check register or things like that, but it includes many modules ranging from things like general ledger and accounts payable and purchasing to human resources payroll, which is kind of a separate function and would be implemented sequentially, probably after the financials. And then another big component to this is licensing and permitting modules, which are, again, there's a related function but separate. So that's one of the things that extends it from maybe a 12-month implementation cycle or a 12 to 18 months to 18 to 24 months.
Under utility bills, does that then include the water?
Utility bills is included in here. That's another major component of the system.
And is there any deadline? You talk about that 18 to 24 months. Is there any penalty or whatever in here if they don't get everything implemented by a certain time, or is that pretty well just open?
Yeah, it's pretty fluid. It's essentially based on our timeline and making sure we're comfortable with the system up and running, and we work out any kinks that we might find. standard is 18 to 24 months, but it could go as long as until we're comfortable with how the system is set up.
So chances are this 372 won't hit the budget all in 1 year then? If it's dragging out that long, or does that have to get paid up front pretty much?
Well, it's the way the 372,000 is reflected in the 2022 budget, it's borrowing authority.
Okay.
So we would likely see where we are when we issue bonds in March and what the cash flow will look like when that will be paid out. And we could either include that amount in the 2022 bond issuance, or if it looks like some of that won't be paid out until later, then we would delay that until the 2023 bond issuance.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes, Trustee Myers.
I was going to say, in regard, when we started talking about 5 years, and you want to even go longer than that, Steve, computers and so on and so forth, things of this nature, things change a lot very fast. In regard to additional changes and so on, is there anything in the contract that talks about that particular aspect, though they would be implemented if we requested them, brought to our attention?
So the software is cloud-based, so there's nothing hosted on our servers or anything. So all upgrades and new features are just automatically uploaded to the cloud, and we give access to them without additional costs.
And I would add to that, I think one of the features that when we looked at Tyler Munis and kind of contrasting it to the system we have right now, is they, for municipalities our size and slightly larger, they have one of the greatest market shares for this particular type of a product, and it's growing. They're expanding in the marketplace. That's important because it means that, like, over the next 10 years, they're likely to be improving, making enhancements to their software. Sometimes when you're in a situation where, like with our current vendor, where their market share is shrinking, the number of clients that they have is declining. They're not putting money back into the software and making those improvements to make sure that it's working well and keeping up with the changes in technology. So that's part of the recommendation. Part of the reason staff recommended Tyler Munis is it was a firm that we felt confident would be making those investments going forward, and it increases the likelihood this will work for the next 10 or 15 years.
Questions? Yeah, I mean, this is a cloud-based system. The subscription is all inclusive, and that's part of it, everything. And that's really how the world of software is going. Microsoft is huge in it now. They own well over 50% of the email service out there for government and for private sector. And it really helps in places like this where you have very little network resources necessary except a browser to get on the internet. So with that, yeah, any upgrades or updates, boom, they're there on a Monday morning when you come. It's a very nice system. With this, I know that we talked about in Public Works, we talked about the utility portion of this. Is that going to be accelerated implementation, or is that going to be on the timeline that's kind of in this system right now? I'm assuming financials have to be first, period.
We've talked with them about that. It's one of the things we've been working through as we're trying to finalize the statement of work before this goes to village board for approval. And it can be done. I think that the key thing is there are some components of the financial design,
Right,
namely the general or the chart of accounts that we would need to do. So we could do a couple of pieces of the financials, move forward first with utility billing, try to get that up and running as quickly as possible, and then come back and do financials later in the year. So that's not the typical way of doing it, but we've got a real burning platform with our utility billing system.
This, like I said, we're going to get a more comprehensive view of this software and implementation tonight at the village board. We're just looking for a recommendation right now to the board. So we have a motion on the table for positive recommendation up to the village board. Is there any other discussion? If not, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. New business item C, American Rescue Plan Act bonuses, merit pay for essential employees.
So one of the trustees brought up possibly utilizing AARP funds for a bonus, for giving a bonus to essential workers. Now, something just recently came out that extends the list of essential workers. So the numbers that you see before you, I would take all of those in total, and so the total at the bottom would be actually the that we could AARP. So I gave several options, including some flat rate options. I can always bring something else back to the table, but I thought this gave us a clear sense of full bonus for.
Is this also on the board agenda tonight? It's coming up in the future?
This, if the committee moves this forward, it would be on the village board agenda on December 6th. This would be, what we're looking for from the committee is a recommendation, taking this to village board. And maybe just to expand a little bit on what Ms. Hearn said about the change that came up. When we were working on this last week and previously, the information that we'd been getting related to the ARPA funds were that ARPA funds could be used or can be used to give bonuses to essential employees. And for those of you who were on the village board a couple of years ago, you might remember that you passed a resolution that listed certain employees as being essential employees. And that was for the purpose of some federal changes in federal sick leave and FMLA rules that essential employees under those rules were not eligible for the additional federal benefits. So we were working under the understanding and based on the information we had up until actually today, that was a group of employees that were considered essential employees. We did get a notice from the League of Municipalities earlier today that indicated that that had changed, and the employees considered essential for the purposes of bonuses under ARPA was expanded pretty significantly. So that's where Ms. Hearn is saying that if you look at, instead of, we had broken it out by the employees who were eligible. Obviously, an option for the village board, if you wanted to go that direction, would be to extend these types of bonuses at village cost. But it appears at this point that most of the full-time regular employees that were being looked at under this proposal would be eligible under the new definition of essential employees.
So that item that says non-essential workers, those are now eligible for ARPA funds as well as essential workers, whether they were hired last year or prior to 2020 or 2021.
Correct.
So everything on this list, and that's why you said, okay, I got it. Before we have any discussion, Trustee Hudson, you brought this up. Do you have anything to say now, or do you want to wait until the village board receives the recommendation for this? Okay. So we have some options. Obviously, this is wide open, right? We could do any percentage, any dollar amount, anything we want using ARPA funds. Remind me again, how much is in the ARPA total?
A little over $2 million.
Okay, thank you.
Matthew, you got to come up here. I'm sorry, Matthew's been much more in the details of this than I have.
So we can't use it all for just,
So well, there are some requirements on the limits of premium pay. Premium pay cannot exceed $13 per hour in addition to inflation. The maximum amount any local government may pay per eligible worker is $25,000. Additionally, if premium pay were to increase an employee's total pay above 150% of Wisconsin's average annual wage, can't do that either. There are some limits, but as I stated, the pool or the number of people who could be classified as eligible is widened.
Trustee Myers.
Steve, you brought this to our attention before in regard to the money aspect. But correct me if I'm wrong, I think you were going to provide to us a list of potential items at that particular time that would be available as such. Your thoughts in regard to going forward in regard to this? Because I certainly want to take care of the employees, but I don't want to do this piecemeal. Well, we get one item, 1 month, and then what were your thoughts, please?
We have been working on a follow-up report to the village board with overall some discussion and some plans for what that could look like. And what I would what I would suggest is that we've been planning on doing that in December. I think we could do that on December 6th. Provide a presentation with some additional information to the village board on what options are available and how, if this is something the board would like to do, how that might fit in with the overall package of what the village plans to do with the ARPA funds.
Well, like I say, speaking for myself, I'd like to see something done with the first million, and then because we got until 2024 to actually let's dispose of the money per se in one place or another. So we got a lot of time to do this. So is your plan to give us on December 6th, and thank you for the information, a total plan or just for 1 million or what? Or you haven't thought about that?
I mean, I think what we'll do on December 6th is get into some more specific options and maybe start to parse it out a little bit of some different things that the village could do. I think we'll talk about some things the village can't do with the money that might have come under consideration. I think it would be good to have that to start the conversation on December 6th. We had talked about, and I think I'd mentioned this in one of the previous reports at Village Board, having a item at a December meeting for a listening session from the public. So maybe after that presentation and the next meeting, we provide an opportunity for residents to come in and give their thoughts on how they think ARPA money should be used and what some purposes of some good purposes for those funds could be. But I don't think we'll have a plan complete until December, but I think you can start to kind of frame a plan out in December and what that might look like.
And that's what I was looking for, and I thank you in regard to that. And then, as you mentioned before, the league just came out with it. I got that email myself today as such, so it's constantly changing all the time, and I don't see us going to stop. And that'll give us more options in the future. Thank you again.
Trustee Nyrider.
So then to follow up a little with Dennis, there's no rush or deadline in getting this done tonight or even December 6th. To me, if we're going to lay out a plan on how to spend the 2 million, you hate to go to the public then and say, well, we've already taken a piece out of it. That's just my personal feeling. And one other question I have, Matt, for you is are these bonuses based on performance?
I'll have,
Or Aaron can answer
I just want
that.
to provide some greater context.
So that's the next section is based on the performance reviews. I mean, obviously it depended on which way. One of these is a flat rate pay, others are percentage. So when we were looking at this, we were thinking all would get one percentage or all would get one flat rate.
Right.
We were kind of looking at it like that. But we would definitely, I mean, we could put it to the performance reviews, but that's really the next section for the base rate.
My recommendation to the committee and to the board, and we have had some discussions on that and given that some thought. And as you'll see with the next item on the agenda, as Aaron mentioned, is the merit pay for the regular merit pay separate from these ARPA funds. And that, I think the board has indicated, the board's position is you want that distributed based on performance, and I believe strongly in performance pay. I would say for this, if the goal for maybe having these bonuses is to kind of address employee morale and engagement after going through the difficult period of COVID, especially the first responders, the election workers, the people in Village Hall who, oftentimes when I'm talking to employees who have worked all the way through this, they'll be talking to their neighbors who are like, well, yeah, it's going to be interesting to get back to the office and get back to work. And I know a lot of businesses have been looking at it from that perspective too. And the majority of village employees have been coming in and working all the way through it. So if the goal is to kind of express some, as thank employees or try to rebuild some engagement based on that, my thought and my recommendation would be that it be an amount that would be distributed to people who meet those criteria, and that the merit pay and the performance evaluation be kept as a separate component. I think they're being done for different purposes.
Right.
Trustee Myers?
Agree with Bill to some degree, but at the same time, your statement also makes sense in regard to the aspect that depending on when you end up doing this, is like, oh, now they're going to end up doing something a year later or such. I'd like to see something done, which is before us this evening. Which one? I have some thoughts in regard to that, but I'd like to have committee members give their thoughts.
I think we're moving towards no recommendation to the village board and just moving it up there and having the discussion at that point. In prep for this meeting, Steve and I were discussing this, and I had a lot of the same questions that you did, and my thought was that this is rewarding the essential workers for performance, not performance on
Just being
necessarily, but just for doing their job during a very difficult time, mutually exclusive of the merit pay. My gut reaction is that we do a percent bonus and only do it for essential workers, but I'll wait until the village board comes. That's kind of a gray area because there are some people that were not deemed essential and maybe should have been deemed essential. So I guess we'll have to wait and see where that breaks down. But I do think that this should be mutually exclusive of the merit pay. That's a different topic and not considered as part of their merit pay at all. So is there any other questions? If not, I think we'll just push this to the village board and we won't make any recommendation to that. Is that fine? All right. We will move on to the next one, which is merit pay. I just have to, so I can read it. All right, this next discussion is about the merit pay pools.
Okay, so this is in regards to merit pay for non-union employees. The total, this was put into the budget for 2.5%, which comes to a total of $80,660. This will be divided into the departments. by the 2.5%. However, once the performance evaluations are done, this score sheet is what we're requesting to use for scoring our employees after the performance evaluations are.
So there's 2.5% in the budget,
Yep,
All
for
right,
each
and-
union employee.
and this one would be based on performance or their performance evaluations. And who's involved with, I guess, deciding the evaluations, and does it go just by a point system, or how would that be distributed?
Sure. So it's originally done by the department head, and then Steve and I will have a meeting with the department head to discuss the percentages and scores that they're giving their. So we'll have that discussion then after they've done the original evaluation process.
Okay. Ready. Trustee Myers?
So basically speaking, what you're looking for from this evening is to improve the 2.5 and 80,660, I think you said? Is that correct?
No, it's actually this evaluation score sheet. So the 2.5% amount will be, if the budget is approved at tonight's meeting, that is within the budget.
Okay, so that's a no-brainer, okay.
Right, so the.
And the
request
second part?
is that this evaluation score sheet is.
So that would set the, when the village board, and this would go also forward to village board, but this would set the maximums then for each, for pay increases for employees with certain scores. So, and I don't have it in front of me, but, someone with a 3, I'm sorry, thanks. Someone with a score, the scale, the evaluation scale goes up to a 5. And so someone with a score of 3 would be eligible for a maximum, and this is something that Aaron and I would discuss with the department heads, but the maximum they could get would be a 3% increase in their base pay, and out of the one-time bonus pool, a 4%. So they got, on the other hand, someone who received a 1 would not be eligible for any increases. Someone who received a 5, and as recall, when we did this a couple of years ago, we did report back. I don't think anyone in the village received a 5. I think we did have a couple of people over a 4.5, but it was the direction that we've given to managers, to supervisors, is those scores, between a 4.5 and a 5 should be rare. It should be an MVP season type of a thing that, something unusually good that gets done, that, most employees would generally be in that 3 to 4 range. So this would, if the committee passes this on to the board and the board approves it, then it would set again, sort of the parameters of what those merit pay increases could look like.
How are the amounts distributed by department? Is it by total payroll?
So each department gets a pool of 2.5% of their eligible employees.
Eligible employees, got it. Trustee Myers?
So I don't get confused with terminologies and numbers. You said bonus pool. Is that the 80,000? Wrong again.
The 80,000 is the merit-based pay that is already in the operating budget.
You said bonus pool. Where is that money?
So there's, and going back to, we're using the same model from a couple of years ago. So there's 2 pools, and there's the base pool, the merit pool, and whatever employees get on that, get from that, it gets built into their base pay going forward into the future. There is also a second pool for one-time bonuses, and what we've done, what we did the last time that we used the merit pay system, we took a small portion of the year-end surplus, and we used that for a pool of for one-time year-end bonuses. And if you look at, and I know Trustee Hudson is here, and he studies this stuff a lot and knows more about it than I do. But if you look at the literature on having merit pay systems, that one of the things that helps make them work better is if you can do what you can to maximize what the really outstanding performers are able to achieve with a high performance. We can't afford to give high base pay increases to employees, just because of our revenue limitations and just being good stewards of the taxpayers' monies. We're not going to be able to do that. So having a second pool with a one-time bonus allows us to, if somebody has a really good year, to give them a little bit more of a reward for that without committing the village to a long-term increase in base pay. So that's why I was kind of divided up into two separate pools, one that affects the base pay and one that is just a one-time reward for the performance in that particular year.
Trustee Myers.
Thanks for clarifying that to me as such in regard to that. The only other additional question I have is on these different pays and so on and so forth, especially bonus pays. Does this go towards their pension?
Yes.
It's important to me, but
would be
because
included.
usually it isn't.
Bonus does as well?
To the extent of the bonus counts towards their total salary for that year.
For that year, yes.
So it won't have a major impact
Right.
on most employees. And I haven't run these numbers here. This is similar to an approach that I've used other government units, and using this combination of base and one-time base increases and one-time increases, it really does help to hold down the overall cost over, if you look at it over a 10-year period of time, it not only with the wages, but as you pointed out, the retirement contributions as well, it helps to hold down those costs while still giving employees meaningful rewards.
Example, again, I asked a question, you clarify it, so that's good. Because most in the past, and the dealings I've had, is bonus pays are not put on for pension purposes. So the example I would give is, I think what you said is somebody had a bonus in their last year before they retired, that would be considered at that time? Is that correct? Is that what I heard?
So let's say that there's an employee who's working his last year or her last year before retirement, making $50,000 a year, and they really have a great year. They add a lot of value to the village, do a great job in their position, and earn a 5 on their evaluation. And then as part of that, they get a 5% one-time bonus. So that would be, if my numbers are right, $2,500. So that would be when they were calculating their pension, that last year, their salary would be $52,500. So that would be used to help calculate their pension. But on the other hand,
Sure.
if that employee if that was 3 years ago, and that employee was making $52,000, they got that $2,500 bonus, their salary for that year would be $52,500, but the next year it would be $50,000. So it would go back down to that initial base.
Depending, different pensions we used to have, when I saw was anything within the last 3 years, they would consider that aspect.
Yeah, I think it's the 3 highest.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. With that, I'll make a motion to accept the merit pay pool, please.
I will second it.
All right, we have a motion for the merit pay pool. Now, just the merit pay pool, there's no bonus. Well, bonus is going to be determined after the year end.
It is included in the.
Oh, it is included.
Yeah,
All right. We'll make sure we're right here.
It's included in the table there.
Yep, there's 2 columns, one max base pay increase and max one-time bonus. But if you approve the table, then it's,
All right, so we have a motion for a positive recommendation to the village board. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, item E, Police Department vacation payout request, and Chief Snow is here.
This request is to pay out a total of 11 days, 93.5 hours to Lieutenant Pat Merton. Just to explain what happened this year, I've come before you and talked about some of the challenges we've faced due to one supervisor being out the entire year, another one retiring in October. We really did not anticipate the supervisor being out the whole year. I think lieutenants were holding vacation day and with the understanding he would be back, and it's not going to happen this year. So the problem was we had two lieutenants that just had a difficult time getting vacation days in. Between this month and next month with the holidays, with the vacation days that are scheduled, the only way that can happen is other lieutenants working 16-hour days. It's just, it can't reasonably happen. We understand that we need to take steps so that this doesn't happen again. I started talking about a command structure that I think will help. In addition to that, we're going to put some practices into place next year, but right now the only option would be for Lieutenant Merton to, I've asked two of the lieutenants to carry over 5 days, which for the one lieutenant, that means he only has to try to get in a couple more days this year. For this lieutenant, it would be 11 days that he can't get in. So I am requesting that we pay him out the $4,374.87 this year. Again, understanding that this is an isolated incident and that we need to take measures to ensure that it does not happen moving forward.
Committee, Trustee Myers.
I'm in favor of this, Chief, but only on an unprecedented basis. I don't want to have, as we've got unions here, I don't have somebody coming back where you did this for, 5 years ago. Why can't you do it again? So I'll make a motion to accept this on an unprecedented basis.
We have a motion, second.
I'll put it out a second just to get it.
All right, we have a second. Trustee Nyrather, you have any comments?
I guess I really wrestled with this one, and I see, Chief, I see the problem. There's no way that we could carry some of those days over into 2022. Know how many total days of vacation this employee has per year?
So I'm asking both the lieutenants that were impacted to carry 5 days over.
Yeah.
To carry more than that, there's just going to compound the problem.
So this would be only
next
be
year.
16 then, is what you're saying. So it went down from 16 to 11 because of the 5 carryover.
That's correct.
He
Okay.
has 16 left over
16
right
left
now.
over. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Got it.
I agree with Trustee Myers here that it is an exception and it's not something we want to do very often. Yeah, I'll go along with it.
Yeah, I agree. Extenuating circumstances, not anticipating someone being out for the entire year is, that's really tough. All right, any other discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, with that, there is no unfinished business, so we will move to the monthly reports. And with that, we'll start with the monthly financial summary. Any comments, questions?
I'd just like to say that starts on page 300 of your packet. I'm sorry, they're so big. And you can go through the packet and you can see that there's a number of allocations that need to be made before year end. So.
Any comments or questions? If not, we'll go to the debt payment report.
That's on page 385 of your packet. And at the very bottom of that page, it shows that the Water system revenue bond payment was made for well number 11. It's a small payment, $4,994, and that was made.
Anything on the accounts payables this month? Thing, okay, we'll move to capital improvement. Thing there, we're a little bit outstanding yet. Item C, summary of village contracts. Anything coming due? Imagine we're getting to the end of the year now.
Yeah, there's not much to report this month, but we will, the next couple of months, be seeing quite a bit of activity. I think the only two new items on here were both approved by the village board here recently.
So when we do move to a new software system for this, would that be carried on this report as an annual?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways that I think we could look at reports. I think financials, it'll be a lot easier to present the budget to actuals information in ways that's a little bit easier for the board to see. And one of the things that really makes a challenge for putting these reports together now is that we can't get it in Excel. It comes out in a PDF, so anything else has to be rekeyed in, which is very labor intensive. When it comes to something like the contracts report, this particular report in this particular format would probably have to be still manually done like we're doing it now. What I've seen a lot of other communities do is, and a lot of them make this information available on their internet, on their website, which we could do as well, is an accounts payable reports, which basically just lists by vendor. So if someone is interested in, what vendors out there are getting my tax dollars, you can put a report out there that lists that. This particular report is something that I think probably still have to be done manually. Maybe we could.
And some of these are longer term contracts than a year, right? Than annual, so
Yeah.
we're just making, this report just tells us that we're not going to miss a renewal, or it expires and we're not going to renew it.
I think in particular, and since I've been here, I think one of the primary reasons the board wanted to see this, one of the things that we're most interested in were the contracts under $7,500. That seeing what contracts were getting approved by
That the administrator.
by
can
the
approve, yeah.
administrator, that and making sure that you were informed of those.
Questions on the contracts?
No.
All right, we'll move to the monthly code violations.
And the top item was one related to the Belkey issue, and that is continuing to proceed through the process. I don't believe there's anything new from last month on that. We did have a couple of other items that came up, one regarding a deck and another regarding a fence, and building inspection was able to work through and resolve those in a fairly quick manner.
Says items in storage in the condos.
That was resolved last month. I think, are you referring to the one on Appleton Avenue?
No,
No.
no, the one over here on, no, not the one on Price Staff. I think it's off a division to the north. Condos.
Remember.
No, actually, it was the next, where the apartment is. It was on that road per se. In the condos, extra storage and so on.
I'll have to check into that one, and that one's not ringing a bell.
I'll give you some
yeah.
additional information.
Yep.
You can report to me in regard to that. Thank you.
Sure.
Item E then would be letter of credit changes. I don't see any on
Yeah, I don't
planning and zoning.
see any changes,
Let's see,
in those reports.
do.
There's one on Woodland Pond Estate forthcoming, it says.
Correct.
12/21. That's the only one. And then the collateralization of funds at US West Bank. That's a recurring one.
That will
renewed.
change.
Yeah.
It will change with tax collections.
That will change.
With tax collections, as more money is brought in for tax collections, that will increase.
Okay,
So that will change next month.
it will. Okay, thank you. With that, we're through all of our agenda items, and we will schedule the next meeting if we stay with the same schedule here. Next meeting would be the 20th. Is that all right with the staff here? It's the week before Christmas.
All through the house.
Your house.
So we will meet on Monday, December 20th at 6 PM. That we will adjourn.